Dr. Medic from Breaking Cage MD. I think I just started the. Sorry, I should be used to it by now. Concept combination. Yesterday we talked about power and like a neuroendocrine view with cortisol and stuff like that. So this time I want to look at power, cortisol, and meaning. Okay, so this is not necessarily a causal relationship, but some correlative models that I've been looking at. You have in perceptual control theory, you have meaning stored in identity. And when you have two people come into conflict, in that dyad, you have a competition for each person is trying to maintain the meaning um, that they're most comfortable with the perception of reality. So you have one person imposing their narrative onto the other person. When a person's meaning doesn't get validated, you get a spike in cortisol. That's one lens. Second lens is see if I can get the right set in there. Second lens is the lens of habit. Um, habit neuroendocrinology works like this. Habit is a carrot stick combination where in habit or any habit or addiction situation, you have initially the anticipation and desire, which is mediated by the dopamine promising reward on completion of the behavior. But if you hold out long enough and you don't do the habit mediated behavior, you get the cortisol spike, which is sort of the stick, carrot stick behavior mod. Um, so that's a second lens. The third lens is when you look at early life stress. Early life stress changes the uh, default mode network, which is where identity and a lot of the self-relevant definitions live. It changes your default mode network configuration so that you perceive there to be an external locus of control versus an internal locus of control. That's ELS, early life stress. Um, this is all looking still at the cortisol lens and stress and power dynamic lens. It's important to remember that testosterone and cortisol, and I discussed this yesterday, are the pair of neurochemicals responsible for determining power. When the cortisol rises above a certain set point, a certain threshold, you get prefrontal cortex shuts down. This is just reviewing yesterday's stuff. And that results in someone going limbic, falling back into habit-based behavior. And this is where basal ganglia-based schema override their personal narrative instead of the schema world models that exist in your, I think it's ventral striatum. I'd have to double check that. But so once again, those aren't necessarily calling for any type of causality, but I'm just pointing out the cortisol correlation as far as the role that someone imposing their narrative structure, their definition structure on another person. Um, and just like as a side reference, another place where this becomes relevant is if you look at the effect of stress on working memory, which is, as far as I can tell, there's an intersection in working memory and attention, which you would call the locus of consciousness. Um, you have stereotype threat results in constriction of decrease of working memory capacity. You also have, and this is interesting, personality types that have, and you look at Schwartz's 10 core values, and this is something I look at much more deeply in the core values chapter and in all the work we're doing with core values. But um, the 10 core values, if you put them in a circle, and the circle kind of represents like the dichotomies of meaning and how the meanings kind of counterbalance each other mathematically, something that I also look at much deeper, more deeply in that chapter. But when you have someone who has core values which are more based around maintaining the status quo and self enhancement, like So these are personality types that, if you're using Myers-Briggs and Jungian models, you would call uh, J types, which is high need for cognitive closure. You find that cognitive closure is correlated with two things: lower working memory capacity and slower retrieval of information from short-term memory into working memory, which is basically emotion-based retrieval of a representation of the current environment. Now, if you're looking at the model that I proposed as far as habit-based management of a situation, you have recognize, which is the subconscious mapping and retrieval of a model. Represent, which is bringing it into working memory, being conscious of it, and kind of reality testing it as your present reality, present experience. It's in your own world at that time. And then you have react, which is basically whatever efferent response you send down your premotor cortex, whatever signal you send outwards. Uh, if you're looking at the perceptual control theory model, to adjust the stimulus. Uh, is it the gain on the stimulus? I can't guarantee that, but I have a feeling it is. But to adjust the intensity of the signal incoming, the input, so that it matches. That's interesting, because I just thought about an article I read about comparator, because that part digresses a bit, so I won't go too deeply into it. But uh, hippocampal models say that the hippocampus is comparator, and that's where you retrieve memories and where you encode memories, unless you go into amygdala hijack. If you want to geek more on amygdala hijack, Craig and I did a bunch of videos about that 1 or 2 years ago. The time flies. So you can check mindful360.com or breakthecagемd.com. Uh, did I do my introduction? It's Dr. Manny from Break the Cage MD.